for tonight, we're going to be doing 3 lasagnas. Now the first lasagna that we have is a chicken and spinach lasagna. This one is a creamy, real bold cheese flavor lasagna for this one. And then the second one is the vegetable lasagna. This one, you can alter that to whatever fresh vegetables you want to throw in there if you have your own garden, or we got fresh local produce. Just put in your favorite, chop it up. You can change it to whatever your preference is for that. And then the final one is a Mexican lasagna, which technically it's actually considered Tex-Mex. A lot of people will call that a Mexican lasagna just because people relate better to that name. But it's actually a Tex-Mex, and it's not a very spicy one, although I will be giving you an alternative if you do like spicy recipes for that. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to work on the chicken and spinach lasagna. I've already got the water to a light boil there. Let's see. I'll go ahead and put a little bit of salt and oil in there. Okay, here we go. Now one thing about the noodles, you want to make sure you have plenty of water in there. You don't want to cram them up, any type of noodles, not just the lasagna noodles, because what will happen as it's releasing that starch, it'll stick together. The oil helps to prevent that to a degree. It doesn't stop it at all times, so you want to make sure there's plenty of room in there that the pasta can expand, and also that it can allow to break away and kind of keep it stirred up there. Now with this type of lasagna, it's what we call force feed. So what we're going to do, unless you have an extremely large pot, which most times people at home won't have one quite that large. If you set one down in there, that's not going to all fit in there. Force feeding it, you can take a spoon, of course, I just do it by hand. Just lightly tap it and it'll slowly bend as it heats up a little bit. And just go around. Don't place it, one on top of each other. Kind of alternate them a little bit. And that'll also help prevent them from sticking. Okay. Go around like that. It's the same thing if you're doing spaghetti noodles. Just put a little bit in a time and just turn it around as you go around. And it's also key that you want to make sure that water is already boiling when you throw those in. Because if you put it in there while the water's kind of lukewarm or still cold, as it cooks, most likely it's going to release a lot of that starch, and it is going to stick more and more on you. You actually want to cook this from this point about 11 to 12 minutes for this type of pasta, for the long flat, and fettuccine also would cook about the same amount of time, until a point called al dente, which means to the tooth. What they used to do is you could actually bite down, it would leave an imprint, but it was still flexible enough, but still solid enough, it'd still hold shape pretty good. And so that's what we're wanting to do, is cook it to that point, because once we put together the layers for making our pasta and throw it in the oven, it'll finish cooking that off for the remainder of about half an hour in the oven. Okay, go ahead and move it aside. Also, another thing I've got a bowl of cold water over here, because what we're going to do is, as we cook that, we don't want to sit there and just leave that in hot water, obviously, and we don't want to just pull it out of the hot water and just set it to the side, because what it'll do is it'll continue cooking as long as it's hot. So once I take that out, I'm going to put it in the cold water, which will stop the cooking process on it. And then you can take parchment paper, aluminum foil, or even sheet pans that has that non-stick coating, and stretch them out there, side by side, and that'll keep it in a nice solid piece. So that way you're not having little broken pieces or pieces that are sticking together or anything. Okay. Go ahead and set my tongs up here, just kind of, and just periodically just go in there and just kind of turn it some. Because right there in the center where you laid all of those around, it will stick if you just leave it like that. Okay. Okay, so I've got some thawed spinach already. And some chicken. Now if you want to use fresh spinach for this, that's fine. If you use the frozen, which is a lot easier, just make sure and kind of press that a little bit to get the water out of it. Just kind of drain it some. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and mix that with our ricotta. Okay. Just make sure and kind of fold the spinach in there pretty evenly. And if you want to, you can add a little extra Parmesan cheese at this point, or Romano. But I think you'll find that this one has a real good cheese flavor anyway. You really won't need that much. Okay. Once you got that mixed up, just put it off to the side for a second. Okay. I'm going to take some chicken. Now this is just boiled chicken. I'm going to cut it up kind of small. Into strips, I should say. And if you want to, you can use a rotisserie chicken or leftover chicken. That'd work just as fine with it. Did you find the recipes, Peggy? Did y'all find extra recipes over there? Okay. Okay. Go ahead and get our pan out. You want to make sure and spray the pan. Okay. And that right now is at a good al dente. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off a second. And just drop that into the cold water. Okay. Like I said, all you need to do is stretch that out side by side here. Yep, actually those two pieces aren't quite done yet, so I'll put those back in a second. Okay. Now, to start putting this together, I've got two different types of sauces here. You can actually use just one or the other. Use both, or they even also make a garlic flavor Alfredo. Or if you want to just make your own, you can use that as well. Just take a little bit. Oops, hand's wet. Kind of spread a little bit on the bottom there, just something to be able to set the pasta in. Help it stick where it don't slide so much when you spread the cheese on top. Okay. And you want to use about 1/3 of this. And of course, you'll find it's always fun trying to spread this on. So what I do is I try to hold one end of the pasta and then spread down going that way. Because if you try to do it this way, a lot of times it'll bunch up on you. Okay. And if it doesn't spread perfectly even, that's okay, because once it heats up, it's going to melt in and kind of spread out some. Okay. Spread your little bit of mozzarella on top of that. Use the rest of that jar. Then use one of the 4 cheese. Yeah. And like I said, this one is very creamy. Got a very rich cheese flavor. And then spread some chicken out there. Okay. I'll go ahead and pull that off for a second. All right. Of course, doing the noodles this way, you can actually prep those up ahead of time and just have them sitting in the refrigerator if you need to, while you get the rest of the stuff together. Okay. Alright. Spread that out there a little bit. Okay. So you're basically just repeating the same steps there for each layer. I got some of these pre-cooked already. Okay. Let's put the last of that on there. Now with this dish, as well as the other two that we'll be doing tonight, each one you're going to start off wrapping it in aluminum foil and baking at least 20 to 30 minutes. And then you're going to take the aluminum foil off and bake it an additional 7 to 10 minutes. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now here I always spread just a little extra cheese on top. And then some Parmesan. Now this is where you'd wrap it up in aluminum foil, bake it off. Once you grab it out, we're going to take a little bit of parsley. Just cut some up really fine. Sprinkle on top there. Y'all see that? Okay. And like I said, that one right there, it's a nice creamy rich flavor, especially if you're an avid cheese lover. You'll definitely love this one.